Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Sit Downs with Charlie Brown. I'm your host, DJ Charlie Brown, and as always, coming back to me for another, I think, like, what? It's like time four. Like, I think we're on this for, like, year 6 or 7 at this point. I lost track. Is, as always, my brother Joe. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good.
He's very excited to be here, everyone. I totally did not kidnap him again, so, yeah. Anyway, so if you're back on again, that means it is the glorious time of year. It is May 30th, which means the NHL season is almost wrapping up. The Stanley Cup Final is in a few days, and I figured you and I are going to sit down and go over all the train wrecks that happened this year and who are the last two teams standing once again. So, you ready to get into this?
Sure.
So, we got first up Anaheim. I mean, this was blatantly obvious from the opening bell. The Ducks have zero clue what they're doing. Like, while it's true that their second half was a little bit better than the first, it was just too late. Like, the issue I noticed isn't with the main core with guys like Troy Terry, Frank Vetrano, Leo Carlson, and Mason McTavish. It also isn't due to Jackson Lacombe, who I think it is looking very good and is going to be a huge impact for the Ducks going forward. But it's everything else. Trevor Zegras had a nightmare season, and he's probably gone after this year. The big splash for Jacob Trouba was a bust. Even worse is, like, they're going to probably have goaltending issues as John Gibson, like, he might be retiring and Lukas Dostal is an RFA. Like, and that's not even getting to their coaching. Like, here's the thing. Greg Cronin, bad coach, but you really hired Coach Q in 2025? Like, don't get me wrong, like, the Kyle Beach stuff's got nothing to do with this. The Ducks apparently talked to Kyle Beach, and Coach Q showed he's remorseful, but was he really the best option? Like, man, this team, I can't with this team, Joe.
A piece of plywood would have been a better coach.
Yeah, that is true.
So
True. Yeah, I just,
I think he's trying to revive his career.
Yeah, like, I'm open to giving him a second chance, but I think it's just like, I don't know. He doesn't seem like he's the guy who's going to get this team going. So, yeah. So, the Boston Bruins. I had a gut feeling this result was coming, and now it has. Years upon years of mistakes under the boys' club in Boston has reared its ugly head. But keep telling me that it was Jim Montgomery's fault. Just think about what he did, dragging a near-dead Blues team to a playoff spot. But turns out relying on your guys to play balls out every night is with little to no depth is not sustainable, which is what this season was in a nutshell. Even then, I expected to delude themselves even further and buy at the deadline. Instead, they actually sold. Like, Carlo got traded. Charlie Coyle, Trent Frederick, even more were all traded. They low-balled Brad Marchand, where I don't think he's coming back. Like, even though he's a free agent, like, I don't think he's returning to Boston. You would think with all this in mind, the Bruins would make changes to the coaching and executive, but nope. Neely and Sweeney are still staying around, which... Buckle up, Bruins. I fear it's only going to get worse for them going forward.
Yeah, it's going to be... It might be a couple years before we see him again.
Yeah. I want to ask you, what do you think happens with Pasta? How long do you think he's got left with the Bruins?
He stays.
Okay, yeah. I just think, like, he's going to probably be there for a bit. All right, now the Sabres. I feel like we have this conversation every year with the Sabres. Yet... I'm the moron thinking this is the year they break out, and it never happens. It wasn't all bad. Like, Tage Thompson was his usual self, and they got decent production from Tuck and Dahlin, but it's just like everything else was a mess. Owen Powers, Peyton Krebs, everyone struggled. Goaltending's even more chaos as UPL is not ready, and James Reimer is all but unplayable. Like... It's at the point where they are once again having to sell off at the deadline, and it just is bad, getting worse and worse. Because now Cousins is gone, Yoki Haru's gone, Nick Abe-Cabell is gone for bulk returns. My question is, what do you do if you're the Sabres? Like, and it just got reported a few days ago that people are getting upset with the lack of direction from management. Like, legit, how do you revive a dead body at this point is the million-dollar question.
I would say the answer is they need new owners, but that's never going to happen.
Yeah,
that's not going to happen for a while.
I don't think we're seeing the Pagulas are going to sell anytime soon. So, yeah.
It's just a bad culture is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's it's just horrible, and it sucks to see because that city deserves more than this. But yeah. So now moving over to the Calgary Flames. I give the credit to the Flames. They got it incredibly hot to end the year, and their rebuild has taken a massive step forward. What really did them in was a ton of those OT losses that really left them missing out on the dance. Even then, there was a lot to look forward to in Calgary. Kadri, Huberdeau, Soranovic had excellent years. Matt Coronado had his breakout and got a handsome contract extension to be a future piece of the core. Perek and Suniev are going to be on the way. Dustin Wolf proved he's going to be the long-term answer in net. Overall, it's a solid foundation to continue to build and develop upon. Calgary is definitely going to be in an interesting spot and a team to watch out for this offseason.
Yeah, I think they're on the up and up. Well, they'll be in the playoffs here
Yeah.
sooner
Like
rather than later.
they were close, cuz I remember it was a race between them and Minnesota, and they just barely missed out on it by one game. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So now moving over to Chicago. The rebuild is progressing in the Windy City. That's about all I can really say about the Black Ops season. They were able to get, here's my thing. You were able to get decent production from guys like Teravainen, Foligno, and Makayev. But are they really going to be the pieces to help Bedard going forward? Ryan Donato had a good year, but they don't seem like they want to keep him. They haven't made any effort. Well, it is true that they got a new batch of prospects in Leshinov and more on the way. They also did get out of Seth Jones' contract at the deadline. It just makes me feel like in what ways do they need to improve this roster? I know that they've been rumored to Mitch Marner and a few other big names, but I don't know what you do because their next head coach is another retread in Jeff Blashill. This might be a tough ask for Chicago because I don't know what you do with this team.
Just keep progressing. They have a lot of young players. You just got to keep progressing for right now.
Yeah.
And they still got third overall.
Yeah, I think they have a third overall pick this year.
Yeah.
So they definitely have a foundation. They just gotta. It's just they're expecting results, which I don't know. I did want to close out. I did want to shout out Alec Martinez and Pat Maroon, as they call it, careers. Pack of runs by both, and certainly will be missed in the game. So, peace, boys. The Blue Jackets. I'm bummed. I really wanted this team to make the playoffs, even if it was for selfish reasons. In all honesty, considering what the Jackets went through in the offseason, Columbus should not only be proud, but also excited for this team. The new regime under Don Waddell and Dean Evison had an incredible first-year run. Kirill Marchenko broke out into being a bona fide superstar and even more of a steal for the contract he was given. Rowensky and Monahan had phenomenal seasons. Johnson and Fantilli are emerging as cornerstones. Jet Greaves might be their answer for the go-to guy in net. All the years they struggled have finally started to pay off, even if part of it feels like it's a what-if season, knowing that if Johnny Hockey were still here, this might be a team that goes to the playoffs. But even if they didn't make it, it's going to be an interesting offseason. But I'm proud of the Jackets.
Yeah, I mean, just keep progressing. They're very young and they're almost there.
Yeah, they definitely are. They're one of the teams that's closer than many people expect. So now the Red Wings. I know so many people are upset with Steve Yzerman, but you got to also keep in mind he's cleaning up a nuclear blast and losing culture that permeated for years. Not the easiest thing to do in the world. That being said, I can understand why alarm bells are ringing. The sluggish start to the year really kind of bit them in the butt. But if we're being honest, I know many people point to them standing back at the deadline hurting, but that might have been some of their better choice to do in the end. I think they had a solid year, but with Larkin, DeBrincat, and more, but goaltending is still a chaotic mess with Talbot and Lyon. And the simple truth is if they don't start out bad, they may have a better shot. I think the big thing they got to worry about this offseason is they got a lot of guys hitting free agency, and they have a ton of RFAs to sign. But I don't really know. People are getting impatient with Yzerman. I want your thoughts on this.
I mean, I would be too, because it's very because they drafted a lot of young players, and are they really any stars?
I mean, maybe Larkin, but that's about it.
But he didn't draft Larkin.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that is true.
He inherited Larkin.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
like out of all the people he drafted, like is there any Moritz Sider? But that's about it.
Sider and Raymond, that's probably about it. So, yeah. I think definitely like he either needs to get a big piece or he needs to hit a home run in this draft, which I don't know if they can do. So,
Yeah.
the Nashville Predators. This is why, kids, we take the title of off-season champions with a massive grain of salt. A season that had expectations of going deep into the spring, and what's the result? A massive cratering to the point where the words don't do it justice. It's hard to pinpoint what went wrong when nearly everything fell apart. O'Reilly and Marchessault were okay, but that's about it. Forsberg suffered regression. Stamkos was a disappointment. Same with Brady Shea. The end result is watching Roman Josi and Jussi Saros left to die on the ice. Nashville essentially went from a promising team to handcuffing themselves to a sinking ship. I don't know how you even begin to fix this. Literally, you can't, if you think about it. Most of the contracts are to guys in their 30s and on bad deals that you can't really move. You need to give up assets to get rid of them. Essentially, I have 3 words for Nashville. You are done. At least for the immediate future, okay? So,
Yeah. Who would have thought that a head coach wouldn't be a good GM?
yeah. Joe, disclaimer, if you go back, this man did say the Preds were going to be good. They're not, bro. They're not. Yeah. The New York Islanders. I was actually surprised they lasted longer than I expected. I've been on record saying the Islanders were not a good team on paper. Besides Horvat, Lee, Palmieri, Sorokin, and maybe Holmstrom, they are lacking in a lot of talent. They had the ability to make the postseason, but that's about it. Not what you really want to be for a hockey team. Based off their deadline, that seems to be what they kind of understood. Nelson was shipped out, and, you know, they did get Colin Palmieri back, but I think the big move that happened this offseason is Lou Lamoriello was officially relieved of GM duties. You know, I think that was a big one they did, and turns out they got rewarded because they actually won the draft lottery, which I'm like, how? But in the end, like, I mean, I still question whether Patrick Waugh is the coach they want to keep, but that's about all I can really say about the Islanders.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The first overall pick will help them.
Yeah, I mean, do you think they go Schaefer or do they go Higgins? Like, I want to know. Because I know Higgins is the local guy, but Schaefer's the ultimate number 1.
Who is it? Is it Noah Dobson? That's...
Oh, wait, Dobson. Yeah.
If I heard that if they just don't want to sign him, then it's going to be Schaefer. If not, then they might go someone else.
Yeah, I'd say...
Like if they re-sign Dobbins.
Yeah,
Dobson.
I'd say... Hey, if it's not Schaefer, it's probably Hagen, but that's just me. So, now moving over to their team across the bridge, the New York Rangers. Well, this season was an unmitigated disaster. A season laced with more drama that hurt the organization than proved they have no clue what they're doing. While it is true that Panarin was his usual self, like Trocheck, Lafreniere, Kreider, Fox, Zibanejad, everyone was regressing. It also didn't help that they traded off Trouba and Capo Caco for throwing criticism, or just mishandled them in the case of Calvin DeHaan. Igor tried, but he could not carry this corpse. What's worse is they even botched the deadline. They did okay by getting Lindgren, Vesey, Hank Kempf, and more. Getting rid of Lindgren, Vesey, Hank Kempf, and more, but what the hell are you doing trading for JT Miller? He didn't do squat with the Regs, and now you're stuck with his bad deal. Like, I would say it gets worse, but it does if we're being honest. Laviolette was fired, but in his place is coming the rise of Mike Sullivan out of Pittsburgh. Keandre Miller, Will Culley, and more are all RFAs, and you got to pay them. People are still pissed at Drury for having a job, apparently. Lee, it's like, how are you making the New York Giants look like a better organization right now?
I think the Rangers are just the Yankees of hockey. Yeah. Which is fitting because they're both in New York.
Mm-hmm.
They don't develop players. They just sign players and trade for them. Yeah. And it's just stars.
Yeah, like who was the last homegrown player that you can really point to as they they really hit on. Like Igor, like that may be it.
I don't define like homegrown. Like they drafted them.
Yeah, like they drafted them.
I was gonna say Fox, but they didn't draft him.
I mean, here's the thing, Fox. Even if you were gonna
Kreider, Chris Kreider.
yeah, like here's the thing. Even with Fox, like he's had some really
Did
bad
they
seasons.
draft Chris Kreider?
That's a good question. I think they did, but I could be wrong.
See, this is, I mean, Keandre Miller, but I don't know.
I mean, Miller, they've been having issues with him. Like there's word that he doesn't even want to go back to New York. So yeah, I don't know. Let's just say
He was drafted.
Okay, so Kreider was drafted, so probably him.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, like, you guys, you're pathetic. All right, the Flyers. Honestly, like, here's the thing. I know it was a bad year for them, but I can't hand them too much considering they're still trying to rebuild after all the wreckage Chuck Fletcher left. You got to understand, we're Minnesota fans. We know the kind of damage that dude can cause. Like, the good news is that the seeds are slowly starting to be planted to give them hope. Mishkov is everything is advertised and is only going to get better. Did get into a car accident over the summer, but thankfully was not harmed. Konechny and Tippett had solid years for the contract. They were able to get nice returns for Farabee, Frost, and Lawton. While cap space will probably be a little tight with a couple contracts kicking in, they do have a ton of picks to play with in this year's draft. And, here's the thing. Torch was fired, but that was probably for the best. Great coach, Hall of Famer, arguably, but short shelf life is how to best describe him. However, in his place is coming Rick Tocchet, who I think is definitely going to probably be better now that he's out of Vancouver. But overall, I'd say my biggest advice is this. They need a netminder in free agency. Like, what they have right now is not going to cut it. Like, dead serious.
Yeah. I mean, if they get a goalie, they're probably like a sneaky playoff team.
Yeah, that's what I think their biggest address should be and needs to get, whether it be through the draft or just in free agency.
Well, it's free agency. That goalie that they get in the draft is years away.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'd say they probably go after Jake Allen. That's probably the biggest one.
Maybe.
Yeah. So now Pittsburgh. Even if this was kind of blatantly obvious, the Penguins are beginning to accept the reality of the situation. The problem is, in an era centered around youth and speed, they are the oldest and slowest team in the game. And that was on display all year. The only guy actually productive was Crosby and maybe Brian Rust. Malkin regressed hard. Erik Karlsson is invisible on the ice, and Tristan Jarry is unplayable at the NHL level. Chris Letang's at the point where people are begging for him to retire. So, several injuries, suffered 2 strokes, and now he had to go under to get surgery to repair a hole in his heart. Dude, you got to retire, man. Come the deadline, they just pretty much sold whatever they could. Deschamps, Bunting, Beauvillier, Cody Glass, anything that really wasn't tied down was cast out for picks and cap space. However, all signs indicate that it's officially coming. The end is officially coming for the Pens, just because they already got parted ways with Sully, and I don't think they have a head coach yet. I don't know who they're gonna get. Crosby, Malkin, and Karlsson and Letang are on no trade clauses. At what point do you think they waive those to try and get out? Can they find someone for Rickard Rakell? Dubas has his work cut out for him this summer, and I don't like the odds for them.
Well, Crosby will go to Colorado.
Yeah, to be honest, I seriously think that Crosby is going to Colorado as well, just because I think you mentioned he loves McKinnon. And I think, it's time, this core you can't win with this core. Dead serious. You just can't.
Yeah. It's going to be a rebuild.
Don't worry. Yeah, but don't worry. And next year they're going to rig the lottery so that the Pens get the first overall pick and Gavin McKenna is theirs. So, it's just how it works. Don't bother. All right. The Sharks. No one said rebuilds were easy, but the Sharks are at least okay with that. Celebrini's as advertised. Same with Will Smith. It's just development with these guys. Even with guys like Toffoli and Eklund, they still are at least better than last year. I don't get why they traded Zetterlund, but at least they got a good return for him. However, it certainly will certainly be an interesting offseason. in exchange for some bad contracts, they have a ton of picks to play with over the next few years. They also did get the second overall pick, which means they're going to probably get another superstar to give Smith and Celebrini a sort of like big three for the Sharks. Just be smart and don't make stupid decisions like Nashville did, okay? That's all we ask.
Yeah, it's they were terrible again this year, but the vibes are different this year than they were last year.
Yeah. I also do want to shout out Logan Couture. The lifelong Shark is calling it a career and certainly will be having his number in the rafters of the SAP arena. Also, unfortunately, I think Marc-Edouard Vlasic might be gone as well, as he's probably going to be a buyout. So, yeah. All right, the Kraken. For those who still are new to the game, this is about...
Wait. Back up. Mm-hmm. Marc-Edouard Vlasic still in the league?
Yeah, he's still on the freaking Sharks. Like, you remember, Doug Wilson signed, like, all those 8-year contracts to the Sharks? Like, he essentially is still there. He's just been invisible. So...
I didn't know he was still...
Yeah, no, he's probably this is the last year of his contract, so he's probably getting bought out after this year at the end. So yeah. So the Kraken, like I was saying, like for those who are still new to the game, this is kind of what you expect from an expansion team. The problem with Seattle is a two-part equation. First is that they're still trying to establish the proper core for the long haul. It's not like they have good players. Beniers and Shane Wright and a lot of the other guys have a ton of upside. Stevenson was okay for the big paycheck he got. However, besides that, there's really nothing else really game-changing. You know, guys like Vince Dunn, Ellie Tolvanen, Jaden Schwartz, Jared McCann, or Brandon Montour, but it just really isn't what you expect for headlining guys. The second part is their issues in net. Joey Decourt isn't the problem. He actually is good and probably does require a backup and did get extended. The problem is Philip Grubauer. He can't stop a beach ball these days, and you're stuck with him for 2 more years. It's clear that one thing the team needs is a change in terms of how they operate. Dan Bielsma was not a good coach to begin with and was fired for Lane Lambert, which is a good move. However, then we get to Ron Francis. Firing him via promotion isn't the issue. It's the fact that you're trusting Jason Botterill, a former Sabres GM. Let me stress that. A former Sabres GM to rebuild this team. Yeah, I don't have faith. So.
Yeah, it's gonna be a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I think they tried to be like Vegas and go to the Cup right away.
Yeah.
Which shows that the NHL is rigged and that Vegas was rigged all along. But yeah, I think they're finally accepting that this might take longer.
I mean, with Vegas, like here's the thing. I think they're really kicking themselves the fact they didn't capitalize on a lot of trades in their expansion draft. So
yeah.
Now the Utah Hockey Club, or the Utah Mammoths as they are now known as. Personally, I consider their inaugural season in Salt Lake City a success. Considering I don't have to talk about the constant relocation, terrible ownership news, and stadium issues, it's probably for the best and a miracle at this point. As far as the team, they're still incredibly young and developing, while also trying to clear off that awful Arizona stench. Keller had a great season. You know, the likes of Cooley and Genther, Barrett Horton, and more are growing into actual players. Carl Vegemelk, I can't say his name. Vejmelka is still trying to find his footing as a netminer, but is sustainable for now. Now, they still got a ton of prospects on the way, so I think the best course of action is just continuing to bring fans in and developing a team on the ice, you know? Like, that's all they can really just do at this point, because, like, it's going to be a bit before this team can probably even get close to a playoff spot.
I think if they make the right moves, they can sneak into, like, the second wild card.
Yeah. My thing is this. Do you buy the rumors that Mitch Marner is considering going to Utah? Or
no.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought as well. So, yeah.
Okay. So the thing with Marner is that they have a lot of money to offer, and it's going to be that. It is a team that's going to offer a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll get more into this when we dive into the Leafs, but, you know, I don't buy it as well. So, yeah. So, Vancouver, buckle up, guys. This one, to me, this is simple. It's the end of an era for the Canucks. It's clear that last year's turnaround was more a fluke than anything. And like it isn't an issue with Hughes, DeBrusque, and Pius Suter. Like the issue is, they nothing's getting going. I think the just entire vision of this team is lost. And it's likely going to result in Besser being done in Vancouver, and Tockett's already out. And my bigger issue is with the man running the show and Jim Rutherford. Here's the thing, Jim. You're not going to be able to get Jack or Luke Hughes. You literally just threw away any leverage you had in a press conference. Like, I don't know what this team, Joe. Like, oh my God. It felt like that once getting rid of Jim Benning would lead to success. Now it just feels like they're going even backwards.
They need new owners.
Yeah. They're in the same boat as Buffalo. They need new owners. So, yeah. Yeah. Like, here's the thing. Like, I want to know your thoughts on this. Like, two things. One, Besser to Minnesota. You think that's happening or not? Okay, yeah.
I heard the Wild don't even want him.
Okay, yeah, I figured. Second one. Is Hughes out? Is Quinn Hughes getting traded to Jersey over the summer?
Not this summer.
Okay, yeah, because I think at some point, like, that's gonna probably happen. So, stay tuned. So yeah, now that we're out of the teams that actually got kicked from the playoffs early, we can actually go over the teams that were in the playoffs. So the Devils. I'm honestly not shocked by this outcome that they were one of the first teams out. They had a good year. There was one thing that really did them in. Losing Jack Hughes for the remainder of the year was the knockout punch for them. The likes of Brott and Heischer can still produce, but without Hughes, they're unable to click. The only reason they didn't get smoked is because Markstrom tried to bail them out every chance he could. They managed to force OT in Game 3 to steal a win, but then Carolina pulled the same move in Game 5 to send them home, causing Markstrom to nearly kill someone in the process. You guys will probably be back, but you need to get healthy. However, there is a ton of work to do this offseason with some of the depth guys to make decisions on. Also, here's the thing. If Vancouver pick up that call because JR might be doing something stupid, okay?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know you don't follow a ton of the Devils, so that's why. All right, so Montreal.
Quebec.
I'm still trying to wrap my head how this team got here. Like, it's honestly impressive. All the question marks, and they somehow managed to capitalize on a golden opportunity. It's impressive. Overall, I thought it was a strong season for the Habs. The core three of Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky had put up outstanding performances. Lane Hudson looks to be like made him put up a great year and looks like a piece for the future. What I think really undid them was their goaltending, because Montembeault had a decent regular season. I just think he really crumbled under the lights. Second, I feel like is this was the start for things to come for the Habs. You got to take the lumps, get guys experience, and ultimately be ready to go again next year. However, they do got some work to do because Dvorak, Armia, and a couple others are hitting the open markets, and I think just you really need to make some decisions, but overall, it's good progress for the Habs after years of being in the mud.
I mean, yeah, it's very good that they made the playoffs, and they're only going to get better. Like you didn't even mention Demidov.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Demidov, the fifth overall pick from last year's draft.
KHL Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, he's especially with Demidov probably going to be in the Calder race next year. It's definitely a lot to look forward to for the Habs. So yeah, moving over to the Lightning. I feel like if they went up against any other team besides Florida, they may have lasted a little longer. Even for that, I think it just shows there are some glaring flaws starting to emerge with Tampa Bay. Well, on paper, the Lightning had a great season, but it just kind of feels a little bit hollow. Gensel's production, Nikita Kucherov's usual performances alongside Hagel, Point, Hedman, and more, it masks an ugly truth about this team. I think goaltending's starting to become an issue, and it's just due to Vasilevsky's getting older, and the current age of this core is 32 years old. It just feels like their window is starting to close, and bringing back more of the old guard isn't really going to help them in the cases of Yanni Gord and Ryan McDonough. So my question is, where do they really go from here? Because they got to make some decisions in this offseason.
Yeah, I think I think the cup window is closed for them, but I think they're still good enough to be a playoff team.
Yeah.
So I think they're kind of stuck in limbo where they can't win the cup, but they're too good not to suck.
Yeah, they're too good to be. They're too good to not be at the top 10 of the draft. So
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, out of like, I think there's like 3 teams in the Atlantic that were like the top teams: Tampa Bay, Florida, and Toronto. And Boston was in there, but they've fallen out. I think Tampa Bay is the next to fall out.
yeah.
Which is good because then finally some of these teams will be coming up to catch them and rebuilding, like Montreal or what looks to be the next team we'll talk about.
Yeah. So speaking of the next team, the Ottawa Senators. One thing I will say, I'm disappointed. I was rooting for the reverse sweep. It's selfish, but I wanted to watch Ontario burn. Even for the loss, I feel like Sens fans are just grateful to be included in the playoffs for the first time since 2017. Simple truth is their core just really wasn't ready for playoff hockey yet. Even then, there's still a lot to look forward to. Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, Jake Sanderson, Drake Batherson, and more had great years and got their first real taste of the playoffs. You know, a lot of good vets on the team still locked up. The trade for Allmark and extending him has really paid off. They do need to make a decision about Shane Pinto, but it's a lot to look forward to in Ottawa.
Yeah, it's like the same with Montreal.
Yeah, it's finally they're breaking out after being years of just kind of like unable to. So yeah. And now we get to Minnesota. You know, I know people are going to poke fun at the whole, another first round exit, blew a 2-1 series lead, typical Minnesota sports, franchise for mediocrity, etc., etc., etc. Like I haven't heard it before on Twitter. But the truth is that I'm actually kind of proud of what we accomplished to what many people think. If you were paying attention, losing Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson Ek after the Four Nations tournament literally sent this team into a tire spin on the I-35. Leaving them needing a literal last-minute prayer to get into the playoffs. Plus, many people, including Wild fans, didn't have expectations for this group going in and expected us to lose to Vegas regardless. However, it does look like they have a lot of promise because they showed up. They actually showed a lot more fight in this series than previous series. Especially, here's the thing. The greatest thing is happening. We are free of the Parise and Suter buyouts, finally. And plus, you're going to have a lot of youngsters like Buyum and Yurov next year coming on the roster. They still have a lot of talent in Boldy, Faber, and more. Kaprizov needs to be extended, but I feel like from what I hear, all signs are pointing to him signing that July 1st. So, yeah. Also, I will say this, Garen. Pay Marco Rossi, damn it! I don't care. Pay him. But yeah, I want your thoughts, Joe.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited next year to have a fourth line of Trenton, Yurov, and Brazeau. And then we're going to sign Mark-Edward Vlasic, who I didn't know was still in the league until like 15 minutes ago. We're going to sign him to a massive extension, and we're just going to keep Buyum in the press box all day.
God. Please just give us someone with speed, Garen. Jeez. Oh, God.
No. He has to sign someone that's a grinder and a fighter. And he's going to be on the second line. See, you laugh because you know this is true.
Yes, I do know we're probably doing that. It's just like, oh, God, why do we do this? I did want to close out Marc-Andre Fleury. It's officially a career for him. 22 years in the league, like, it's a Hall of Famer for sure. Sure, it's just really great.
They'll bring him back and he'll be the starter.
You can tell how we're taking this year.
Dude, old guy, Stanley Cup winner, he knows.
I mean, to be fair, Fleury's going to be involved in the front office, but yeah, it's a mixed bag for the Minnesota Wild this year, but good Lord.
I just want to point out, I have high hopes for the Wild, but I'm just saying if this starts to go off the rails, I can see the smoke.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So now we go to the LA Kings. If you think Minnesota's having a rough time, the Kings give you a massive challenge to look at. Since 2014, they have either not qualified or lost in the first round. This year, they proceeded to amplify it by once again falling to the Oilers, making them officially their property for losing 4 straight against them. In a season where they needed to get over the hump, they failed miserably, blowing a 2-1 series lead. Now you get to enjoy the wonders of this might be the end. Kopitar and Kempe are entering the final years of their deals and demand pay raises. Lafayette and RFA and might be gone. You can't move or acquire a lot of guys because of their contracts. Also, did I mention they have about $105K in free cap space? You're screwed. The end result is Rob Blake being fired with Jim Hiller likely on the hot seat. That's not even the hilarious part of this. You want to know who their new GM is? Ken Holland. You guys literally just shot yourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you don't follow the Kings a ton.
Well, they lost to the Oilers again. Like,
yeah. All right, the Colorado Avalanche. I still can't believe after all the work you put into this year, all the moves you made, that's how it ended. Avs had a great season, there's no denying it. The group of McKinnon, Makar, Lankinen, and others are still running the table. The guys they acquired in Natchez, Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle, Mackenzie Blackwood, and more to supplement it. They even got their saving grace as Gabriel Landeskog, yes, a name you guys haven't heard in a good bit, returned charging into battle for the first time in since 2022. You can give me the excuse that it was a tight series and a close series from the word go, but then we get to Game 7. 2-goal lead entering the third period. What happened? 2 words. Mikko Rantanen. He gets his revenge sending you guys to the golf course. They're going to be back here, but you got work to do as you're over the cap and a lot of guys hitting the open market. Tick-tock, Avs. Tick-tock.
I think McKinnon's only going to get 1 cup in his career.
Honestly, at this point, it might not be shock. It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me. And that's depressing.
At least he got 1.
That is true. The St. Louis Blues. I'm more impressed with the Blues than anything, if I'm being honest. Yes, they did choke a 3-goal lead to lose in double overtime and will be ever haunted by the game winner of Adam Lowry. If you remember back in February, I wasn't sold on the Blues. Guess they took it as a challenge as they went on a tear in the second half, setting a new franchise win streak in the process. Even for the heartbreak they suffered, St. Louis has a ton to look forward to, especially with Jim Montgomery being the sole savior and going to be exciting behind the bench full time next year. They still have Thomas, Kyrou, Neighbors, and more. Holloway and Broberg proved to be the price they paid for. They finally got to see the debut of Jimmy Snuggerud. Binnington was able to turn it on in the second half. Even as a fan of Arrival, it's going to be interesting to see what they do going forward. Perhaps I may have judged them a little too quickly when I called them dead.
I think Jim Montgomery really helped.
Yeah. I mean, he just...
You know what? It would have been hilarious if the Blues went and won the cup all the way.
Oh, God.
After Boston. Well, this would have been the second time because remember they immediately fired Bruce Cassidy and then immediately won the cup the next year.
Yeah, that would have been hilarious. Yeah. Speaking of the
Bruins know what they're doing.
Yeah. Speaking of the Knights, we actually get to them next. After their series with Minnesota, I had a feeling the Knights were not going to get far. Aside from the few spurts here and there, they could get nothing going out of their top lines. The lead scorer of this series was Mark Stone with 4 goals. Against a team like Edmonton, that's a recipe for disaster. While still a good season, I question whether the Knights can really keep this up. They will have a few guys coming off the books, but most of their core is locked in for the long haul. If they want to make changes or improvements, you got to make decisions on guys. Knowing reputation, they'll probably try for another shiny toy and cast someone like Alex Pietrangelo to the side. I don't know.
Mitch Marner.
Mitch Marner in Vegas, really? Oh, God.
There's rumors.
There's always rumors with those guys. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. So now we move over to the Capitals. I give them credit. Compared to last year, they actually showed more energy and life this time around. Simply put, I think they just ran out of gas against Carolina. You know, even for falling in the second round, there's a ton to look forward to for DC. You know, Protas and McMichael had really good seasons and it looked to be the studs of the future. You know, McMichael is an RFA, but I think he stays. You know, Strome and Dubois, Pierre-Luc Dubois had revival years. Thompson has proven to be the backstop going forward. And who could forget Ovi? You know, 40 years old and achieved immortality, finally breaking Gretzky's goal record. However, next year is going to be a little more paramount as obviously it isn't confirmed that Ovi is going next year is Ovi's farewell tour. That seems to be what it is. So I think, you know, regardless, I think there's some work to do for the Caps, but essentially it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean they've focused on what life is going to be after Ovechkin, which yeah, not officially, but basically essentially everyone's kind of confirmed because there's no way that an email gets out saying it's Ovi's last year without something.
Yeah.
But I think they're set up to with Ovechkin to be gone, and that's going to be key.
Yeah.
A lot better than I thought they would do this year.
Definitely. We got to give them credit for that. So, yeah.
But I think they're probably going to be more like a Vancouver, where I don't think they'll be as bad next year, but
sort of like
we'll see.
Sort of like in the middle of the pack, not.
Yeah, I think they overplayed this year, and we'll see them come back down to earth a bit next year.
Yeah. So now we move over to the Winnipeg Jets. I'm of the belief that this team is cursed or hasn't fully cleared the Atlanta Thrasher stench off them. From my perspective, the offense and defense aren't the issue with the Jets. Kyle Connor and Nicola Ehlers came up huge for the Jets this postseason. Adam Lowry's game winner in OT against the Blues is going to be talked about in legend. Mark Scheifele went from losing his father before Game 6, lost his father before Game 6, and continued playing. So what killed them? Goaltending. I know, shocking. Connor Hellebuyck is really good, but that means little when the Jets keep trying to run him into the ground. Like, go look at the stats. He's logging over so much ice time that it's in the regular season that he's burned out in the playoffs. You know, I'm not saying he needs to go, far from it, but they need a backup. Here's the stat. Since 2020, he has played the most minutes of any goalie. For context, so there's him, and then Saros is number 2. The difference between the minutes of the two, 2,000. So it's clear you need a backup for Hellebuyck, and I'm advocating for this. On top of that, Ehlers is a UFA, and Kyle Connor's entering the final year of this deal. Jets got work to do. That's all I got to say to them.
Yeah, but they're pretty good. So
yeah. Now we get to the fun one. The Toronto Maple Leafs. Well, what do you have to say for yourselves now? Don't give me the excuse of how you guys beat the Senators in round 1. Bennett is a dirty player or the refs screwed you. Last I checked, the refs aren't the reason you got boat raced in games 5 and 7. Against the Panthers, they were flat out spanked. The same issues for year after year after year after year came up. The offense going invisible, the defense, the depth being useless and useless as an NFT, and their comfort of playing on the perimeter reared its ugly head again. It got so bad that fans were hurling booze, swears, jerseys, beers, soda, and probably more at these clowns.
This is nothing new for Toronto.
Yeah. You were warned time and time again about your failures having consequences, and now's the time they are finally going to feel the wrath of it. Marner's a free agent, and he ain't coming back. Same goes with Tavares, depending on what they do. Nyes and Robertson are RFAs and going to be demanding very big pay raises. If you lose those guys, what do you do with Matthews, Nylander, and Riley based off those playoff performances? Brendan Shanahan was already told to go away. The Shanahan plan is officially considered a failure. I'm not even a fan, and guys are telling you to blow it up. Seriously, it's not working. Stop.
Yeah, I don't think Masters is going anywhere.
I mean, here's the thing. All the fan base wants him traded, apparently, so...
What? Why?
It's just they're overreacting. I don't get them. So, yeah. Now we get to the Carolina Hurricanes. Every year, the same story with these guys. It's at the point I just blow it up just to save people from themselves. 15 straight conference finals appearances for the Hurricanes, and they haven't finished the job. Wasn't even a case where they lost in the usual gut-wrenching fashion. The minute the puck dropped game 1, it was over. They were crushed by Florida in a million ways as people watched them suffer. I wish I was joking, but they lost by multiple goals all series long. Even if it feels like a mercy killing, it feels like the window's closed. While Jarvis, Svechnikov, Aho, Slavin, and Kotkaniemi are locked up, many have lost faith in this core. They still don't have a netminder that can make a save. Rod Brindamore is starting to lose the room after years of coming up short. Sorry, Canes, you got to make big adjustments. I'm sorry. You want to win, stuff's got to change.
Okay, but I have a question for you. Do you think the Eastern Conference Finals was more Carolina was that bad or Florida was just that good?
You can make that argument, but here's the issue, dude. The fact of the matter is, that's the same thing you can say for these past few years. Every year they've been in the conference finals. Oh, the team was just better than us. So,
yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah. Now we get to the Dallas Stars. Now, I know you were thinking that I am relishing in the Dallas Stars getting crushed again, and I am, trust me. For a team that spent a ton of money to capitalize solidifying the forward depth, it vanished at the worst time imaginable. You know, Jason Robertson, Wyatt Johnston, Mason Marchman, the $12 million man Mikko Rantanen. Anyone going to show up? However, the real problem is the defense they tried to put out this season. You expect me to be shocked that D-Corps featuring the likes of Matt Dumba, Ilya Lyubushkin, and Cody Ceci can't play defense? The end result is allowing Edmonton to bully you. However, that's not what's going to be remembered. Let's paint out this scenario that happened out last night of all nights. The Stars are down 3-1 in a series at home versus Edmonton. A few minutes into the game, the Oilers score on a power play goal and a breakaway, putting them down too early. You call a timeout. Peter DeBoer calls a timeout. Now, what does he do? Pull one of the best goalies in the game in Jake Onger for a career backup in Casey DeSmith. What'd you think happened? Of course it blew up in his face. The fact Dallas didn't want to strangle DeBoer after this is beyond me. Dude should be fired for this point because it shows he doesn't have a clue what he's doing throwing his best goalie under the bus. Now there are more questions for a ton of their depth guys being UFA, both Duchesne and Ben being free agents, figuring out how to redefine the D-Corps, trying to juggle cap restraints, and hoping to God Waldner doesn't pull a Patrick Waugh. They have hit a massive wall, and I fear it is going to get ugly. All the meantime, us in Minnesota are dancing on your grave.
Yeah, they should trade Onger to Minnesota for, Gus Nyquist, Justin Brazeau, Trennan.
Yeah.
He wants to leave. Mm-hmm. Trust me, he wants to come home.
Yeah, come home, Jake. Come home. Come home.
I mean, Peter DeBoer is speedrunning how to ruin a franchise.
Yes.
Goalie.
Honest to God, what were your thoughts when you were watching that last night?
Why?
Exactly. Why? Nothing makes that move make sense. So, yeah. And now, after going through all that, we are down to 2. The lovely Stanley Cup Finals matchup. First, coming out of the East, the Florida Panthers. It got hairy towards the end of the regular season, but Operation Title Defense has continued. As they often say, winning is often nice. Winning again is even better. The Panthers once again trigger everyone in the northern part of the states as they continue the South's quest to hold on to Lord Stanley's Cup. In terms of the actual roster, there hasn't been much change from last year. Barkov, Kachuk, Lundell, and more continue to frustrate the teams left and right. However, the real threat has been Sam Bennett. Playing for a contract this year, he has been on fire this postseason, which is scary to think about. Just when you think it can't get any worse, it does when you look at what they did at the deadline. Getting a legend and playoff warrior in Brad Marchand certainly has its perks, and it's paid off this entire postseason. The defense is even more ruthless with guys like Ekblad, Forsling, Mikkola, and Dmitry Kulikov. Even better, they added Seth Jones at the deadline, which makes them even more of a pest to play against. If you escape the clutches of the defense, you're in trouble, as Officer Bobrovsky is on the case. He ain't letting in softies, and you know it. Florida knows that these opportunities don't come often. It's important to make them count every chance you get. After breaking their in-state rivals, breaking the Leafs, and walking through the Hurricanes, there's one team left standing in the way of the back-to-back. And it's the one you like the most, Joe.
Let's go.
Edmonton Oilers. For the first time since 08 and 09, we have something special. 2 back-to-back years with the same Stanley Cup Finals matchup. The last one was Detroit and Pittsburgh. Coming up short last year, the Oilers have been fueled by that loss and want to go for round 2. Similar to the Panthers, there isn't much roster turnover from last year. As usual, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl prove why they are 1A and 1B at their positions. Add to it with the likes of Evander Kane, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, and Matthias Janmark for a very strong and reliable forward core. You know, they have depth scoring in the likes of Adam Henrique, Jeff Skinner, Trent Frederick, rookie Vasil Podlinski, and the immortal Corey Perry, still in the Cup Finals after all these years of making it. Yeah, the defense isn't their strong suit, but it does feature the likes of Darnell Nurse, Matthias Ekholm, Jake Wallman, and Evan Bouchard to aid them when they need it. However, once again in between the pipes, Stuart Skinner returns for round 2 as well. While mostly pedestrian in the regular season, he's been sturdy in this postseason, coming up big. On top of here's the thing. On top of ending Canada's drought this year, which is, I can't remember the number they're on right now, and also cementing Leon and Connor's legacies, this might be one of their best chances they ever get to go again. You know, while Leon's already extended, Connor's due for a contract in the summer. 2 vital pieces in Podlinski and Bouchard are going to be RFAs. Guys like Stuart Skinner, Matthias Ekholm, Jake Wallman, and more are UFAs next year, and you might want to keep them around. Regardless, I feel like it's do or die time for Edmonton. So
yeah, and they're a team possessed.
Yeah, they definitely have been playing on fire. They went through the Kings, Knights, and Stars. So who do you think is going to get to be be insufferable this time around? So looking at the matchup, you know, obviously I feel like I know many people are going to put money on Florida to take it. You know, they've been dominant all year and they've faced adversity. But realistically, I actually think Edmonton's going to steal this one from them. I don't know why. I think of it like this. They've had they had all summer and all year to sit with this and constantly be reminded that they were essentially 2 goals away from completing a legendary comeback and ending the drought. And I think this time, you know, they know damn well they're not going to let this opportunity go. I think they're going to play fast, they're going to play aggressive, and I think they're ultimately going to make sure that the cup finally comes home. So.
Yeah, I think it's Oilers too. Oilers probably going to win in 6. I just think Florida will give them a run for their money, but
yeah,
Oilers.
I think I say 6 or 7 as well. So it's definitely going to be interesting. So buckle up, everyone. Joe, thank you once again for coming on, and we will see you guys back here hopefully in the near future. So until then, peace.